We have a call to order for our council meeting. We could have the roll call.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Silva.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Present.
Mayor Villegas Walker.
Here.
And Councilmember Gardenis is absent.
Now, before we begin, I guess it's,
Before item 26.
no, the teleconference.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I guess I should have done this before, but the regular meetings of the El Centro City Council, a successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, successor housing agency for April 17, 2018, are now called to order. Prior to the roll call, I'd like to explain to the public and enter in the record that this meeting is being conducted pursuant to California Government Code Section 54953B concerning teleconferencing of meetings. Mayor Villegas Walker will be participating in the meeting via teleconference from the Citizen Hotel, Legislative Boardroom, 4th floor, 926 J Street, Sacramento, California. In accordance with the Ralph M. Brown Act, this location has been identified in the notice and agenda for this meeting. The location is ADA accessible and open to the public. The public shall have the opportunity to address the City Council as successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency and successor housing agency at this teleconference location pursuant to Government Code Section 564954.3. I, Mayor Pro Tem Garcia, would like to ask Mayor Villegas Walker to respond to the following questions. Mayor Villegas Walker, are you able to hear our proceedings on this end?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes.
Was the agenda posted as required at your location 72 hours in advance of the meeting?
Yes.
Is your location such that any member of the public could participate in this teleconference from your location if he or she wished to do so?
Yes.
Are there any members of the public present wishing to participate?
Strangely, no.
Now, I would like to confirm that all council members can clearly hear Mayor Villegas Walker.
Yes. Yes.
I would like to remind all when speaking that you speak into the mic. I would like now to report that any vote taken during this meeting will be taken by a roll call vote. Mrs. Caldwell, you have already called roll. I need to address the issue of a quorum for this meeting. Yes, there is a quorum of the City Council present in the council chamber here in El Centro, so the meeting can proceed. Do we have a comment about a closed session?
Yes,
Yes.
we do. I wanted to let the council know that there's no reportable action from this closed session, but that the city will be adjourning to another meeting on Wednesday, the 25th at 11 a.m., at which time there will be a report from closed session regarding the litigation filed against the city by Charter Communications.
Now, if we can have Councilmember Jackson lead us in the pledge.
Please join me. Ready to begin.
If you could please remain standing for our invocation by Mr. Todd Evangelist.
Sure. Join me. Lord God, we do thank you for this wonderful, beautiful day. We thank you for all good things, and we thank you even in difficult times. We ask for prayer for our country and the family of former First Lady Barbara Bush, who just recently passed away. We pray for that family, that country, and what that represents to us all. We do thank you for the leaders gathered here today and for our community. We truly pray a blessing upon the city and all that it impacts here in El Centro. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I'd like to give a notice to the public. This is a public meeting. If there is an item on the agenda on which you wish to be heard, you are asked to complete a blue speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. Persons wishing to address the council, successor agency to the RDA, and successor housing agency are not required to identify themselves pursuant to Government Code Section 54953.3. However, this information assists the mayor by ensuring that all persons wishing to address the council are recognized and also assists the city clerk in preparing the city council meeting minutes. When the item is announced and your name is called by the mayor, please step to the podium and state your name for the record unless the mayor extends the time. There's a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. If you wish to address the council, successor agency to the RDA, and successor housing agency concerning any other matter not appearing on the agenda, you may do so during the public comment portion of the agenda. Now we'll move on to presentations and announcements. The first item that we have is our 110th anniversary of the city. However, we are going to move that to the end of the meeting as we have a celebration that we hope you all stay to witness and take part in. The next, of course, because we have cake. So the next item that we have is a proclamation for Arbor Day. The City of Centro proclamation, Arbor Day, April 27, 2018. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas the City of El Centro has entered into an agreement with CAL FIRE for the Imperial Valley Urban Forest Project for the planting of 1,400 trees throughout the Imperial Valley, and in support of the Arbor Day mission of planting, nurturing, and celebrating trees. Now therefore I, Edward Garcia, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of El Centro, State of California, do hereby proclaim April 27th, 2018 as Arbor Day in the City of El Centro.
Probably Chris
Is
or
there anybody here to?
Do we have a representative?
Yes, we do. The city has contracted with Tree San Diego to do the program management for this project, and we have Callie Legakis from Tree San Diego.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Presentation for you.
Hi, good evening, council members, Mayor Walker. My name is Callie Legakis. Oh, let me talk into this a little more. My name is Callie Legakis. I'm with Tree San Diego, and as Ms. Cox mentioned, I am the project manager for this project. So I want to give you guys a little bit of information on what we're currently doing and what we're looking to do in the next coming years. So let's get started. You can skip on the next one. So my presentation's a little bit longer than 3 minutes, so I'm going to condense it. If you guys would like any further information, please feel free to contact me afterwards, and I can share my slides as well. So our first project is 1,400 trees across the county. So this, basically, we partnered with every city within our county to plant these 1,400 trees. The trees will be drought tolerant. They will be desert species that basically are beautiful and will help improve the air quality of our county. So, go to the next one. This work?
No, it's not working.
Is it? Okay. I'm gonna go back one. Okay, perfect. So when we plant these trees, when we apply for these grant programs, we have to plant within disadvantaged communities. So how we decide what a disadvantaged community is we work with EnviroScreen maps. So as you'll see on the screen there, the Imperial Valley is designated as highly disadvantaged. So if you look up the coast on the left side, all that green area, that's considered highly advantaged area where, frankly, there's not really a lot of funding for planting any trees or anything really environmental-wise because that area is designated as okay already. The circle is the Imperial Valley, and as you can see, we are in dire need of some trees and a little more greenery, so that is where this project will take place. Education, we have a Imperial Valley Tree Steward program that we're going to be launching with this, and we will be across the county in every city, holding trainings and certifying community members on how to be proper tree stewards that know how to properly select and plant trees across the county. Another component of this grant is greenhouse gas tracking. So each tree sequesters and stores an amount of carbon over a lifetime. And what we do is we capture all that information through our tracking technology, and we map it on our Imperial Valley urban forest map. So that's a little snapshot of what we currently have. All the little green dots show the trees we planted so far, and that's actually with our last grant. But you will see over the next year to 2 years, there will be green dots popping up all over that map. And you'll see on the right-hand side, all the benefits of each tree that's planted will be shown. So you can log onto this website, click a tree, and you'll be able to see a photo of the tree that's planted. You'll be able to see how much carbon that tree has sequestered and stored so far since the date it's been planted. And you'll be able to see what the monetary value of each tree actually is. So it's a great tool that we can use education-wide across the city, hopefully across the county, to kind of get people to understand the importance of trees and that it far surpasses just the beauty of trees. Okay, so wrapping up, last year at this time, we held an unofficial Arbor Day event, and we had Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia come down, and along with our current mayor at the time and a few other council members and city manager, we planted 50 trees at Buckland Park. And as you'll see in those pictures, it was a great day, a lot of fun, and what you'll see on the right-hand side are the statistics of the tree that was planted. So to date, you can't really read it up there, but it has basically all the information of the carbon and the size, the species, and how much money that tree that was planted at Buckland Park is worth today. So all this information is going to be expanded through this program and will be, like I said, accessible countywide. And then looking forward into the future, so the Imperial Valley is basically El Centro is the first city that has been awarded grant money from CAL FIRE. So this large project of 1,400 trees is a big step in the right direction, but it's actually hopefully the start of a larger program with El Centro being the head. So the goal is to create an urban forestry program within the county with El Centro leading that. We have 2 grants that El Centro applied for in this next round of funding with CAL FIRE, and it's a very competitive process. They were both asked back for the next round, so fingers crossed we get through that next round. And lastly, we have our tree removal. So we're planting all these new trees, having all these new opportunities, but there are some dead trees, and that's something we definitely know is important and we'd like to assess immediately. We're looking for current funding opportunities. So far, we have not been fortunate enough to find an opportunity that works, but it is something that we're looking towards doing in the future. Okay, thank you. Any questions, anything?
Wonderful. Any comment from the council?
No, I just, this is the same program that we did over at Sunflower School a couple years ago when I was mayor, and it's a great program, and that integrated the kids' involvement too as we planted, and so I'm very much in favor of this. I think it's a great program for the city of El Centro and great benefit to our residents, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. So just a couple of questions. So
Yeah, of course.
On the, you mentioned that we're still in competition for a second grant. Just keep our fingers crossed.
Yes.
So if we do get funded for the second grant, is that will provide the same kind of service, additional trees, or what would the second grant fund?
So they're actually 2 very different grants. The first grant is written by the city of El Centro, and it's actually an inventory program grant. So what this does is we're planting all these trees, but there's no way for us, other than using that small map, to track the progress of all these trees. So what we're proposing to CAL FIRE is creating a very, should I say, tech-savvy approach to an inventory system. So we'll be using LiDAR technology and developing a new software program that uses satellite imagery to find trees and log them based on their species, size, location, all tons of different stats. And what it is, it's actually very innovative. It's the first program of its type that CAL FIRE has seen, and so they're very interested in it. And it's a step in the right direction of creating the first tree map that has both public and private property. Because as you know, having an inventory system that encompasses private property is a tricky situation. So starting with public property is what we are proposing, and so that's what that first grant would entail. The second grant is actually a free tree trade program, and it's written through the city's foundation, and that program is in partnership with the city of El Centro, and it's to provide free trees to community members. So if you are within one of the designated disadvantaged community zones, you are able to apply to have a number of free trees planted in your yard. So what that does is it gives the city of El Centro a chance to provide the means to some people who might not have the means on their own to plant beautiful trees that sequester carbon and help improve their lives in their yard at no cost. And of course, free education as well, which is wonderful. So those are the two programs that we're going for, and they're highly competitive. And like I said, fingers crossed, we will get funded. So.
Thank you so much. I will keep my fingers crossed. The second question for me is, all of the trees that are being planted under the current grant, are they all being planted in areas where there's water already, like parks?
Yes. So, go on. Do you have any other?
No, so that's,
So actually, all trees in this current grant will be planted in public spaces. We actually started a watering agreement with each partnering city, where each city has signed an MOU or will sign an MOU with the city of El Centro. And once the tree is planted in the partnering city, that individual city will take ownership for the tree. So that means they are responsible for all maintenance, tree care, and watering of the tree for its lifetime. So they are responsible for ensuring that that tree survives long term. And our goal for these 1,400 trees is 100% survivability, which is a large thing to hope for, but that is our goal. So this watering agreement is the step in the right direction.
so thank you so much for this amazing project, and it's something that, it's going to get better every day as the trees grow and provide the benefits that you listed. It's something that is going to just keep improving our quality of life every day. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming out here. I remember exactly when we went out there and I met you for the first time, and we went through the whole tutorial how to plant the trees. And you know what, they're doing great at Buckland. A lot of residents love them, and it's just adding to the beautification of our city. But there's one thing that you haven't mentioned. I think there's a little connection that you have to our city.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Oh, I think there might be a little one. There's a little one.
So my father is actually the park supervisor, and he has really helped to help open some doors with some people across the city that didn't know as much about the importance of trees. And a lot of what I get as far as my environmental love and my love for trees is from my dad, someone who really understands that. And so it's been really fun to work with him too.
That's absolutely wonderful. It's great to see a second generation come and try to help our
Yes.
city, and that's you're doing wonderful work, and we look forward to it. Mayor, any comments?
Just that I think that this is a first step in an initiative that we're really excited about in terms of beautifying the city with all of these new trees, as well as removing the trees that we see out there that have suffered as a result of the drought. I hope that this is the first of many initiatives that the city is able to roll out that will both help beautify the city as well as enhance our environment. So well done. Very excited about the project.
Thank you.
Now, if we could have you meet us down there so we could present this to you and take some photos.
You'll need to tell him.
Grab the speaker.
Yeah, so hold the speaker for sure.
Are you photoshopping me in?
We're holding the speaker up.
Hold the speaker up. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. Look forward to your continuing work in the city. next on our agenda, if I could have Mr. Chris Haw from NAFL Centro. I believe he has something extremely special to talk about.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris Haw. I'm the Public Affairs Officer for Naval Air Facility El Centro. Good evening, Mayor Walker.
Hello, great that you're there. Thank you so much.
Tonight, I'd like to bring you a lithograph on behalf of the Blue Angels and Naval Air Facility El Centro as part of a reaffirmation of the friendship that our base and your community have. It's more of a family relationship, as I was talking to somebody earlier today. You guys are 110 years old. Happy birthday. We're only, let's see, in May, we'll be 72 years old. So I guess we're kind of like one of your kids. But we want to say thank you so much for all the support that you've given the base throughout the years. And to do so, Blue Angels gave me this and asked me to pass it on to you for not only the support of the base, but support of the team as well. And this year's lithograph is the Blue Angels over San Diego. And I thought it'd be especially appropriate since that's one of our nearest communities out here as well. And then I'd like to answer any questions you might have about that. And once again, wish you all a happy birthday.
I have one question. Did
Certainly.
you bring 5?
Huh?
Did you bring 5?
No, this
We're
was
like
only...
family. We're going to fight over it.
Well, it's the city of El Centro, so there's a lot of people that you guys have to fight over. But no, this is just one of our ways of saying thank you so very much for all of the support you provide us year-round. We can't do our mission without the love and support of a community like this. I mean, you all make it possible for us to train warfighters that have to go out and put warheads on foreheads, and we thank you for that.
That was very subtle. Comments from the council?
I like that. I'm going to use that.
Kind of timely, too.
I think that we're unique, and when I talk to people, across the country, and you have snowbirds that come in, and they're from different places across country, and they've served at different bases. They say that we have the most unique relationship with our facility here, that there are communities that, have problems with their bases that don't have that same relationship. And I think it speaks to our community, it speaks to the community out there at NAF, how we are just one big family and how we support each other. Certainly the base does tremendous economic development opportunities for the city and for the county as a whole. But I think our residents embrace and love the sound of freedom, as they say. And I think we're very fortunate to have NAF El Centro here, and hopefully we'll be here for another 100 years or so with us. So thank you.
Exactly. Thank you.
And I'd just like to say, how special we are here in Imperial Valley to always host the first show of the Blue Angels. And, I think I've been going for at least 10 years in a row, and I don't get tired of it. I think it's just an amazing show. And last year I invited my daughter's in-laws that came from Santa Maria. And they were so excited. They want to make sure they come back next year and the year after that. This is a show that they're going to put on their calendar and be here every year because it was just an amazing show, very special. And so thank you for.
Then I'd like you to save the date. March 16th will be the 2019 air show.
Awesome. March 16th?
March 16th. We're going to do it a week later.
Okay.
As a father of 3 little boys, I can't tell you the excitement that happens in our backyard that's been happening for years whenever any sort of military aircraft flies over. Daddy, look at this. Daddy, look at that. And when the Blue Angels come to town, it is just something special. They make me pull over the car so they could watch.
Excellent.
When they're practicing. They don't have to wait for the air show. And that's what makes this community so special. And we have this wonderful symbiotic relationship where we completely support you guys and you guys completely support us. And we hope to keep that going on for many years going into the future. And, of course, the air show speaks for itself.
Excellent. Well, thank you so very much. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said symbiotic. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Mayor, any comments?
Two things. Chris, thank you so much for being there and for the presentation of this very special lithograph. And to my council colleagues, it better be there when I get back on Friday.
So do you want to pose for a picture? You want me to
Yep.
bring it up
Yes,
there?
no, of
How would you
course.
like me to do this?
Love to.
handed it over to them.
Okay, and
Hand this to the attorney, so we don't get her in trouble.
My husband
Okay, next, we have a presentation by Imperial County Public Health Department in regards to the city's Safe Routes to School program.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Yoli Viviana Sanchez, and I'm the program coordinator for the Safe Route to School program.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, today I'm here to present the progress report, what we have done from July to December. And basically, I will be going over what we have done for that report period. I will be showing, going over the coordination and collaboration with activities with youth, general education that we have done, and also some parent service results. From July through December, we have worked with 12 different agencies, such as law enforcement, healthcare providers, business, city and county departments, and youth groups. We were able to reach 230 youth from AmeriCorps and Centro Union High School. We work in collaboration, and we reach a total of 720 students and parents throughout different activities. We have educated the students on walking and biking safety to school. With the collaboration of the youth groups, Law Academy, Central Law Academy, and AmeriCorps, we conducted 5 walks in the month of October. And those were at Centro Union High School, Washington, Martin Luther King, Kennedy, and Desert Gardens. With the engagement and having on board the school principals, we did a little bit of fun on the walks. For example, the Desert Garden, the principal invited and encouraged all the students to wear their pajamas, so we had a pajama walk from Buckland Park to Desert Garden. And at Washington, the school principal there engaged the students to wear Crazy Sock Day. So the students were walking with Crazy Sock Day. So the walks had a lot of fun, and at the same time, we were educating the students on walking and biking safety to school. That was for the month of October. We also have been doing direct education using a bikeology curriculum and child pedestrian curriculum. We have conducted 51 direct education sessions at classroom settings. So we have been doing after-school settings. We have been doing during advisory. At Southwest, we have conducted bikeology curriculums. We also have been working with the safety from Desert Garden, the students there. Moving on, we also have reached a total of 2,713 students and parents throughout 9 different school sponsor events, where we have been reaching the parents, giving out them coloring books and some incentives. And thanks to the collaboration with schools, we have been able to have 14 social media post-related activities, such as news articles, Facebook posts, and as you can see there, the schools, the principals are taking the lead and posting the walks. Throughout our education, we have given away bicycles to the community, to the students, coloring books, helmets, thanks to the funding and the incentives that we have. Moving on, we also did parent surveys. We distributed a total of 4,397 parent surveys were distributed, and we got back 633 parent surveys completed. They represented a total of 7 schools. The results of the surveys indicated that the distance estimated was 39.29, that equivalents to 226 students live less than a 1/4 mile of the school. 14.29%, that equivalents to 84 students live 1/4 through 1/2 a mile of the school. And 18% live 1.5 mile to a mile from distance from school. Moving on, also the parents' results indicated that from those students, in the morning, we have children that walk and bike to school, we have 27%, and in the afternoon, we have a 29% of students that walk back from school. Okay, moving on with the highlights of the parent surveys. The parent surveys also identified that almost 30% of the parents feel that the school strongly encourage students to walk and bike to school, and 64% neither feel that the school encourage or discourage the students to walk or bike to school. Moving on with the results, also the results indicated that parents' representation on how healthy walking and biking to school and from school. So 36% of the parents know that it's very healthy walking from school and to from school, and 38% identify that it's healthy, and as you can see, 1.6 identify very unhealthy walking and biking from school. Also, moving on with the results, the issues identified by parents for those children that walk and bike to and from school, the number one is the 33% indicates speed of traffic along the road. So those were some issues identified by the parents. Second, we have with 32% violence or crime. And then we have 31% with weather or climes. And those issues are identified by parents that their children walk and or bike to school. And for those children that do not walk to school, the parents identified that one of the issues is distance. 43% is distance. 41% is safety or intersection of crossings. 39% indicated the speed of traffic along the route, and 37% indicated violence or crime. Those results are for children that don't walk to school. So, as you can see, the similarities are very common for those that walk and don't walk. Next steps, we will be continuing doing engaging youth clubs, and we will be engaging the pending schools, but we have already engaged 3 out of those 5 schools. So we have 2 schools that we will be working with, that is Wilson and Sunflower. We're currently working with Kennedy, Southwest, and Lincoln. As you know, this report period was from July through December. And we will be also working with the schools to provide them with trainings, toolkits, for them to maintain the strategies of Safe Route to School after the grant ends, because this grant will be ending in December. And then overall, we have completed 80% of the program activities have been completing for this up to now. Any questions for me?
Questions from the council?
I have a couple of questions. Thank you, Yoli, for the presentation. Just a few questions. So the surveys that you guys did you guys do that in Spanish as well, or the English and Spanish surveys?
The surveys, yes, we distributed English and Spanish surveys to the schools.
And is this the first year you do surveys? Have you done surveys before?
It was the first year. Yeah.
And you're saying that the grant ends in December.
Yes, my understanding that the grant ends in December.
Is it being refunded, or this is the end of the grant?
To my knowledge, I think it's ending in December. Yes.
Okay. Have you talked to? Is this information somehow going to be related back since it's ending, so I want to change my question. Because my question originally was going to be if you intended for this year to be your baseline of data so that you track that and see where the areas where you're improving, because, data without action is just data. And so
No.
typically you would get that information and you come up with an action plan to improve those numbers.
Definitely, we're working closely with the schools. We will be taking the results to school. That's why we're trying to work with, provide the schools with tools, training, so they can continue with the Safe Route to School activity once the program ends.
And I think that if I'm the schools, I think that the number that would kind of stuck with me when I saw it is the 64% of parents that had neither opinion on the whether schools encourage children to walk or not. The fact that so many parents had no opinion, I think that's, if I'm the school, I will be concerned over that. And so I'm sure that you're going to relay that to the schools. so
Yes,
they-
definitely. But just the surveys were disseminated between July through August through September. So hopefully with the education and the encouragement and the activities and the walks that we have conducted at the schools, we have engaged and we have passed the message to the kids, to the parents of that walking and biking is safe and it's a healthy way of maintaining physical activity.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No. Mayor?
Yeah, just with regard to next steps, one of the things that I heard a lot from parents when I was doing one of the walks for Sunflower was that they would be much more amenable to having their child walk to school as part of a group, so part of kind of like a human bus, especially if there was an adult that could help lead that group or be with the children from point A to point B. So was there anything in the works, either with the schools or with specific neighborhoods, that we can somehow help organize those kind of human buses to get kids walking together in small groups with a parent or adult present?
Yes, definitely. We have some activities that are called bus school walk, and basically
Yes.
what it is consists of forming groups and having a parent as a lead and walking, like example, 3 blocks, and then from the 3 blocks we'll have another parent, and the other parent can follow up and walk the other 3 blocks. That way the kids will be walking with a parent and an adult for long periods of time. So definitely, yes, we can look into that, and we will go back to the Sunflower and provide them with those tools, toolkits. So,
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie.
any other questions?
No other questions.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have a Spectrum service update by Mr. Buzz Schott from Charter Communications.
Good evening. My name is Buzz Schott, and I'm with Charter Communications, based in San Diego, and we serve the Imperial County as well as El Centro. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the lack of service for CBS and NBC, the blackout that's been caused by Northwest Broadcasting. We understand the frustration. We are frustrated as well. Our employees are frustrated with the situation. Charter has been working hard to resolve it, and unfortunately, we're making very little headway with Northwest at this time. But it's important to understand that we are acting in the best interest of your constituents and our customers. The costs that Northwest is asking for are very, very high. They're higher than any place we pay in our 41 states that we serve Spectrum cable services. And so we know that if we pay these prices, that it's going to be passed on to the customer. And if it starts there, it just escalates. So we're really trying to do the best to resolve this issue. There have been allegations that if I talked to the mayor recently, and one of the things she said was that if it was a larger city, this wouldn't happen, and that's just not the case. We value El Centro our customers here in El Centro, and this actually is happening throughout the state of California. It's also in Idaho, New York, and other places throughout the United States where we get service from Northwest Broadcasting. So, you know, we really are trying to resolve this issue. We just, you know, we asked for a meaningful extension during the negotiations right before Super Bowl weekend. We did not expect that the blackout would occur. We thought, you know, that it was a tactic by Northwest with the Olympics and the Super Bowl coming up. So we never did expect this to happen. We know that there's been questions about, you know, are there going to be refunds? Is there going to be a reduced rate? We have brought that up to our corporate offices. They are considering it. And I have not gotten an answer, but I confirmed that I will respond in writing to you and the mayor, hopefully later this week. So I am working to do that. And I guess finally, on this issue, I'd just like to say that we recognize that the city believes that filing a complaint with the FCC was the appropriate action, and we don't argue that you need to do something because we are all frustrated with how this is going forward. So the only thing I would ask is that there's a balanced approach to your arguments, that you don't vilify Spectrum or the employees of Spectrum, because you know, especially the employees here that live here and work here and are working hard to provide the highest level of customer service, have no control over what's happening in this situation. So, you know, but and you know, as a member of Charter Communications, I just want to confirm that we are trying to resolve this issue. So, and then on another issue, just as a positive, try to end on a positive note. We are bringing 1 gig, the fastest service that we have for residents, to El Centro. It's one of the priority areas. We are doing it in Hawaii right now. It's the only place right now, but we expect in the next few weeks that the Imperial County will get the fastest speeds available. So we are working to provide the highest level of service to the area. I don't know if there's any questions.
I'm a little afraid to ask for comments from the council. May I start?
So am I.
Yes.
Given the fact that you are in active litigation with Charter, probably restraint on comments would be the better course.
That's a good idea. Maybe
Sorry, Jason.
we will abstain from making
Leave it
comments
for
at
another
this
date.
time.
Okay, yeah,
Due to the pending
I recognize
litigation and
that.
the advice of our city attorney.
I had the
But,
same advice before I came here. So.
Thank you for coming out here and speaking with us.
We did want to ask questions, but we can't.
Well, hopefully, I can be back here shortly, soon, with some resolutions. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. Now, if we can move on to our screen went black. Code enforcement cases update. Our code enforcement officer, he's been doing an amazing job.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. I would like to give a brief update on the recent cases that we have been working. As you know, the Code Enforcement Division is responsible of enforcing the city municipal's code and city ordinances. The goal of code enforcement is to protect health, safety, and welfare of residents and establish standards to maintain property values and community aesthetics. The 3 major code enforcement tools are administrative citations, criminal citations, and civil enforcements. And this is a map of the areas. Out of 10 cases, 6 of them have been successful, and we're still working on the others. But as you can see, 2 of them are commercial, and then the other 4 are residential. Our first one, this property is a commercial property. This property is located on Bradshaw and in Imperial. And on this one, there was a structure in the front that was used as a sign business at once. And in the rear of the property, it had a diving pool that was abandoned. So a lot of my homeless people would hide in the pool, and I would never see them. And we were very fortunate to get the property cleaned and have the pool removed. This next slide, this is located at 473 West State, just really close to City Hall. This property was known as the Cottages, and also we had a high concentration of people congregating in the mornings, and we were very fortunate to work with the owner, and he was able to demo the property, and now that's the way the property looks. We're still working with the owner to have the property fenced. This next property, this is located at 356 West Hile. This property has a CDBG loan, which is a community development block grant loan, and we're gonna be able to foreclose on the property since it has a city loan. And we were able to secure the property and clean the outside, which constitutes as an imminent danger for the neighboring properties. This other slide, this actually we finished cleaning it up today. Also, it was a fire hazard, lots of complaints. We were able to clean it up and board it up, and right now it's boarded and fenced as of 5 o'clock. I don't know. This other slide, one is a commercial property and the other one is a residential property. We were able to get the property sold, and we're working on both of them. One of them is gonna be rehabbed, and the commercial property would be demoed and completely cleaned. And that's it. Also, I would like to thank CRNR, 1-800 Board Up, our local law enforcement and fire department. This is a lot of work. I would not be able to do what I'm doing without their assistance, and of course yours.
Thank you.
So if you have any questions?
Comments from council?
Yeah, and a great job. I did have one question about the cottages. I know that we did have some conversation about after they had removed the structures that they were, we were trying to get them to come in and do the concrete removal of the sidewalks and everything. Are they, and I know the fencing hasn't come around yet either. Are we in a place where we're fortunate that we got what we got, or are we still trying to get that next?
No, we're still trying. I'm still working with them.
All right. And any idea of what that owner wants to do with that piece of property? Has he stated anything or any plans?
The last I heard was offices. I don't know.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ana, for the terrific work that you do for all of us in El Centro, and maybe a little bit retroactively, but I also want to thank you for the amazing job you did with the Mayan Hotel situation that I know was very difficult, but you handled that, professionally and as well as it could have been handled. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Just want to say that you've been extremely busy.
Yes.
And the residents and, of course, us on the council have noticed the work that you've put in. Also, we understand that it takes a very big team to get something like this done with local law enforcement and of course, all the other members of city staff that take part in this. And it's wonderful to see this blight being cleaned up. It's opening the doors for the city to really, really move forward. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to let the council know that the city has filed an application for a Helen Putnam Award. Those are awarded every year at the League of California Cities annual conference. And I have to say, and I've told Adriana and Marcela this, and Anna as well, that application for the Helen Putnam Award was one of the most well-written applications I've ever read. It talked about the city's approach to code enforcement, how we have brought together all of these partners, and if the narrative doesn't absolutely put us over the top in winning this award, certainly the pictures will, because the before and after pictures are just definitely worth more than 1,000 words. So fingers crossed that we have something to celebrate with that award coming up. In the meantime, I'm hoping that we've identified our next top 5 properties that we've targeted for cleanup, and that we can just continue to hammer home the responsibility the property owners have to take care of their space. Every single one of those pictures that I see, I always think to myself, what would it be like for me, my quality of life, to wake up every morning and have to look at that? And I think that the code enforcement and the team that we've put together, planning and all the rest, just doing an amazing job. And I'm looking forward to the next report with the next 5 properties that have been cleaned up.
We have 10.
We're good. Okay, keep them coming.
So basically, Anna, great work.
Thank you.
And we've got plenty more.
Yes, thank you.
Take care. Now we'll move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are approved by one motion. Council members or members of the public may pull consent items to be considered separately at a time determined by the mayor. Any consent agenda items being pulled?
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of consent agenda items 7 through 22.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 absent.
It won't be displayed.
Yeah.
Move on to unfinished business. If I could have Liz Zarate come and tell us about the first round of Measure P.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, I bring you an update on the first round of the Measure P projects that were approved in January. A total of 3.1 million projects were approved. The Finance Department has made those budget amendments into each department's accounts, starting with the working group of ADA IT. The IT division has been working really, really hard on getting those projects. They're approximately at 75% completed. They've spent a total of an approximate amount of $338,000. And like I said, they're about 75% completed with their projects. As for the transition ADA plan for improvements to city buildings, that MOU has been signed. And staff will be working with the California Joint Powers Insurance Authority to move forward and start these improvements with the ADA plan. And this transition plan will take approximately 1 year to complete. So payment for that will not be processed until the plan is completed. Under the Community Enhancement Project, we had the Valley Center Point redevelopment RFP. That RFP master plan is currently on hold, so we will not be moving forward at this time. Under the Parks and Recreation Working Group, we've got several projects for lighting renovations, facility renovations, as well as the Carlos Aguilar new parking lot. Those projects are all being procured for on-call contract services, and we expect to bring those to council in June. Under that working group, no funds have been expended to date. I would like to remind council that we did submit for a grant under the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and we will, if we are awarded that, we will require a matching amount, a 50% cash match. So as a reminder, we still need to have that money available if we are awarded the grant.
Liz, what's the amount of that grant that we applied for?
It is $3 million. So under the Public Works Working Group, most of the projects are in the procurement, staff is working the projects, all of those projects are being done in-house. And we expect to bring them to council. For example, at the May 15th council meeting, we plan to bring the parking lot resurface area for approval. The re-roofing will be brought to the July 3rd council meeting. And to date, none of those projects have expended any funds, but will be expending them in the near future. A total of, like I mentioned earlier, a total of $338,000 has been spent in the first round, with, of course, the remaining balance. As of April 1st, sales tax revenue that has been collected by the city is approximately $4.1 million, and that's as of April 1st. We'd like to bring forward also some new projects for consideration. One of those projects is the Monte Vista Regional Soccer and Wellness Park project. City staff has been meeting with Imperial County Office of Education, and they have made various presentations to city staff members as well as some council members. In your packet, you'll note that you have a summary sheet with the highlights of what this project will offer. And also as well is a site map, which is included regarding the proposed acreage of the project. City staff is seeking direction from council to see if we can allocate some funds from Measure P for the feasibility study of the Monte Vista Regional Soccer and Wellness Park. It's estimated that this study may cost between $60,000 to $80,000, and so staff is looking for direction to see if we can allocate funds from Measure P for that project. The other project for consideration is the development of a feasibility study for a convention center here in El Centro. Staff would like to see if we can start procuring requests for proposals. An approximate amount would be $125,000, and this study would determine if the convention center can be developed within the city. And this is also part of the Vision 2050 that was approved a couple of years ago. At this time, if council has any questions, staff is also here from the individual projects. If you have any question that is specific to that, I believe also ICOE is present in case you have any questions regarding the Monte Vista.
I'll go ahead and start if, I just know, first of all, I apologize for being late, but I know there's been a lot of meaningful discussions with ICOE, and I do appreciate Mr. Evangelist being here, and I know our mayor's participated, Councilmember Jason Jackson, and then also Efrain Silva, and you know, the fact that they've been advocating and helping us out in terms of maybe even looking at a feasibility study. I believe it's a significant opportunity and does require some due diligence in terms of if it's economically feasible. So it's a pretty exciting project. But again, the opportunity for a feasibility study to determine if it's equitable and it can meet our needs, it's something that I'm hopeful the council would consider. We did ask, you know, ICOE some pretty tough questions. I know that we probably spend about $1.5 million on 48 acres of parks here in terms of maintenance. So one of the questions that we had asked Mr. Evangelist and Dr. Fennell was, you know, what their plan was in terms of providing park maintenance and keeping that park up. So I'm hoping that the feasibility study would include some opportunities for maintenance, because it's quite a task. So again, I would like for us to give it some due diligence. It's a great project, and it's something that our citizens really need to consider to determine if it's equitable for our community.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very supportive of the idea of moving forward with this feasibility study. I did have some questions, and maybe Todd, if you are prepared to answer a couple. The first question I had was, where are you in your planning stages as far as developing your application to LAFCO for the annexation of that parcel?
Well, it's my understanding that the annexation is underway. I don't know if it's been parceled out. Actually, I don't know the specific answer to that question, okay. But I know it's underway in as much as it relates to the northern parcel that's on there, and I think there's just pencil marks on what the rest of that would be. But I'm not 100% sure even where the city's at on that. So I don't know, maybe the planning department might have an update on that from my end.
And, well, and Marcelo, maybe you can
But it's
help
our
with that.
intent to certainly annex the entire thing.
Yeah, and the annexation, the application would come from the applicant, would come from them, or would it come from the city?
Actually, it's an application that Imperial County Office of Education, they've started the process. Right now, they're going through that process. So I believe it's out for comment right now.
Okay, all right.
So they have, but the process has been initiated.
Has been
And
initiated.
it's my understanding that they're doing the entire parcels.
That's my understanding as well.
All the acreage,
I know at LAFCO, we had an update a few months ago, and I know that the intention, or at least the direction from our executive director was that the entire parcel, including the sheriff's station and jail and all that area, be part of that. That would be his desire, or he thought that would be the best course, but I don't know where, we haven't got an update. We have a meeting in a couple weeks, so.
I wouldn't know, I wouldn't be able to answer whether the county's facility would be part of that as well. Actually, in the current building of ICOE sits on county property, so.
Correct, yeah. And then my second question would be is, we have an estimate of 60, 80,000 for this study. Has ICOE solicited any bids for that study, or?
We have, and we have good news. It would be under that.
Yeah, under that.
Yeah. There's a couple options. The fuller proposal would be under 50,000, actually about 49,000. There would be a more bare bones approach at 30,000, 33 something, but the added benefit would be less benefit to the project itself, and maybe more benefit to the city. It goes into an assessment of prioritization of demand and opportunities for the parks in the whole city, not just as it results, not just as it's specific to that one particular project.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything else.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to say that I fully support spending some funds in a feasibility study. I know some people sometimes frown upon
Not us.
feasibility
Yeah,
studies,
right.
and they may think that it's a waste of time and money, and it's not. I don't adhere to that.
I'm sorry, Efrain, I'm
Yes.
having a difficult time hearing you.
Okay, I'm sorry, Cheryl. So I don't adhere to that policy. I think before the city and ICOE decide to embark upon a, $12 million project when the whole park is constructed, that we do some due diligence, that we in fact analyze this in a way that ensures that this is a viable project for the residents of El Centro and Imperial Valley. So I totally endorse the concept of proceeding, funding the feasibility study, and then hopefully get some good news. And if it's not good news, then at least we know, and we've given it full consideration. I do expect it to come with a positive recommendation, I suspect.
Well, we would hope so too. And by the way, I failed to mention, my name's Todd Evangelist for those who weren't seeing me here, Mayor Walker. But we would certainly concur with that, and especially in the proposed plan is that we would operate and maintain the facility. So we certainly want to know if it's if our plan is feasible as well. And so we're glad to participate in that study as well.
Well, I can only say that since this project was first presented, I've been extremely excited. I believe that this is a game changer for the city. We've seen other cities throughout the country that have adopted this type of infrastructure project and have really flourished by welcoming outside teams to come in for tournaments, things like that. It has a huge economic impact, and I love the description in your little memo here. And basically, you have 100 teams playing at least 3 games each, staying 2.5 days, 4,000 out-of-town visitors. That's 1,500 hotel night stays, 24,000 meals, 1,000 tanks of gas. It's a snowball effect. They come over here for these tournaments, and this project could be such a big addition to our city and our county. I wholeheartedly support this. I have from the very beginning, and I would love to see this come to fruition.
We appreciate that, and we agree. And we're looking forward to having somebody validate that in a feasibility study.
I'll ask our city manager a question. Marcela, what specific action do you recommend that we take today?
So basically, what staff is seeking direction on is, one, whether or not you want to partner with ICOE to conduct this feasibility study in the form of, setting aside certain funding to assist with that completion of that feasibility study. And also, whether or not you would like for ICOE to be the agency that engages those services, or if you would prefer that the city be the one to procure those services and see that the study be completed.
So are we to set aside a specific dollar amount, or we leave it open?
I believe right now, based on estimates and what we've seen, is, those studies can range, from 60 to 80. Of course, Mr. Evangelist indicated that they've gone out and talked to an agency. What the recommendation would be is that we, put out a proposal to, find the company that's most qualified to do this for us. And we can, again, either partner with ICOE and assist with the payment of that study. Perhaps, if I remember correctly, it was indicated that maybe you may have a way to also assist. I'm not sure, 50% or what percentage you would be assisting with the completion of that study.
We certainly would want to talk about that. The funding agency on our end would be our auxiliary organization, the Foundation for Education, which is the nonprofit organization at Imperial County Office of Education.
So, if I may, and I'm curious to hear comments from our Madam Mayor as well. And I don't know, Cheryl or Madam Mayor, would you want to chime in now, or?
Yeah, well, so there's a few things. So my first question, just to kind of get back to Jason, something that you've raised with regard to LAFCO. When are we anticipating that this property would in fact be annexed to the city of El Centro? Was that kind of in the cards at some point in time?
I believe that the pulse that I get from my colleagues on LAFCO would be to move forward with that. I just don't know where we are as far as timing, based on the fact that I don't know where the application process is.
Okay.
But I know that the discussion, I don't think there's any pushback from the members of LAFCO in the annexation part of this project.
Okay, so then let me ask this question. What is the shelf life then of a feasibility study for this parcel of property?
I would assume it'd be 3 years.
It
And so do we think that the annexation would be completed within 3 years and we'd be ready to move forward? I'm just kind of trying to figure out the timeline. I'm supportive of the idea of moving forward with the feasibility study, but as we've talked about with the huge big ticket capital expenditures for the library and the police department, we don't want to be getting too far ahead of ourselves on a capital project that may require us to go out for bonds. We need to be very mindful of what that timing is.
I would tend to agree with you. I think that although I believe we're all supportive of the project, the key to this project is the application to LAFCO. I think that it would move rather quickly, but you never know what might be brought up by people that live in the area that might have comments, or there might be things put forth for the county and for the city to have to make adjustments on the LAFCO application. So there could be some back and forth. So I think that for my point, I'd like to see where we are in that process, and I will also reach out to our executive director to find out where he is. I'm sure he's had conversations with either yourself or Dr. Fennell in that process, but I haven't had an update.
Okay. And the other point that I was hoping to make is that I thought that we had talked about having each of the four subgroups going back and reconsidering, or not reconsidering, but meeting again and coming back to the council with proposed projects like we did earlier this year, that we have those working groups, you know, back at it for what would essentially be round two, so that we are holistically looking at what we as a council may want to establish as the next set of priorities. Because in addition to these two great projects, I mean, I really want us to talk about what, if anything, we can do, or what would we consider doing, if anything, on two other huge needs I think that the city has. One being our homeless population, and number two, I really would like to see us come up with a plan to address animal sheltering concerns. So both of those things. So I guess it had been my hope and expectation that we would go back to the working group, have those very robust discussions, and then have that percolate up to the full council for all of us to make a determination on what comes next. That's point number one. Number two is, I think that we need to get some more detailed financial projections on when the monies that we've already allocated will be spent, so we don't get ahead of ourselves in terms of new allocations from the Measure P funding. Because keep in mind that a couple of things that Liz mentioned. One is that the ADA study is going to come back and essentially show the city where we will have shortfalls and need to develop a work plan with regard to ADA compliance. There's going to be a price tag that goes to that. So when is that going to kick in, and what do we reasonably anticipate that spend to be? Similarly, if we are successful in that grant application, we need to make sure that we have the funding set aside for our cash match. And I just don't feel that I don't have a good sense yet as to when all of these projects that we've already identified are going to kick in. I also don't feel that we have the right flow yet as to the triggers for the expenditure of additional funding. And I feel very strongly that I would like to see the working groups get back at it and identify what's next on the priority list, or have we addressed the priorities and we're ready for the police and library projects to get underway in full swing, which, by the way, that will be looked at. I guess, Jason, we have a Community Enhancement Task Force meeting next Wednesday, and we'll be addressing both of those items at that time.
Yes.
So, Madam Mayor, then do we want to go ahead and get back into, I guess what I'm hearing is we would get back into our groups and put forth priorities, and then do you have a timeline in mind on when we can maybe bring these projects back? Are you maybe looking at the first meeting in June, or what would be your expectation?
I would say, Alex, and thanks for asking that, I would say the second meeting in May or the first meeting in June, depending on everybody's schedules and the ability of the working groups to get back together to meet with staff and then have those discussions. Because, guys, again, and I know I said this at the meeting, I so appreciate the time that everybody devoted to really the deep dive and the research required to come up with the list of priorities. I think this process has worked incredibly well. I think that we are being excellent stewards of the public's monies and making sure that every single dime is accounted for in these Measure P funding. I think we're being very deliberate in our evaluation and consideration of projects, and I just want to see us continue with being, kind of tightwads when it comes to this money. And with its, I just think that that's really, really important. And even though I think that both of these projects that we're talking about right now are excellent, I want to make sure that I'm defending spending, $125,000 for this study, $40,000 for that study, but make sure that it's money well spent in the sense that at the end of the day, we're going to have the money to complete whatever the project is that we're doing the feasibility for, and that it is in line with the other capital needs that we've identified and agreed maybe take priority over these two, which include the library and the police station.
You know, Cheryl, maybe on one stance or one instance, I see that there are two different projects, and I think certainly I think there needs to be more discussion regarding the feasibility study for the convention center, because I think that when you talk about feasibility studies and you bring up a good question about what's the shelf life of a feasibility study, and usually it's 2 to 3 years. You know, the opportunity to break ground and actually start building a convention center within that timeline, I think we need to probably look at that. As far as the Monte Vista Soccer and Wellness Project, I think, you know, it's been discussed that by Mr. Evangelist and or Dr. Fennell, is that this is a project that could be put together and built in a relatively short period of time. We're talking about,
From our perspective, sure.
yeah, mostly, well, a lot of grass, obviously, but there is the one major structure. So I would be, and I think that this project is one that has garnered a lot of attention from our community. Obviously, there's a lot of youth in our community that play soccer, and I think that also the economic impact to our community is a very positive one. And I would be willing to move forward on that feasibility study as opposed to the one for the convention center. I think there does need to be some more research done on that, although I do think that we are coming to the point where this city is ready for something along those lines. But that is just a timeline of, you know, can we meet that expectation of 3 years?
I think some people are maybe getting hung on the idea of or the word of a convention center, because when we think about convention center, we think about the convention centers that we've all been to in the big cities, and I don't think that's really the intent of this. I think that I've heard from people now in the entertainment industry that are telling us that the Imperial Valley is ready for a larger venue where events can be held. This feasibility study, from my perspective, will tell us what size, and maybe shouldn't call it a convention center, but maybe you should call it some kind of meeting center, meeting space, to be able to have small conferences, small events. You know, you all know that I help organize an event here annually that would easily, you know, have 1,000 people, and there's just no facility anywhere that can hold that many people. And the one that we had that held 600 people, which and is in pretty deplorable shape, is you know, we're having to downsize significantly to a venue that is less than ideal. So I do think that Imperial Valley, and particularly El Centro, is in a position where these kinds of facilities are needed. And again, it may not be a convention center like the San Diego Convention Center, but some kind of meeting facility that allows us to have meeting places, small conventions, you know, entertainment type facilities is what this feasibility study will tell us if we're ready for that or not.
No, I agree. And let me be clear. I fully support the idea of moving forward on trying to determine what that is and what that looks like in the future. My only question is obviously the cost and the ability to actually move dirt and build the structure within a timeline. If we're 3 to 5 years out from actually being able to construct that, then maybe we need to take a step back on when do we actually move forward with that feasibility study. And the only reason I say that there's a difference is between the two projects, and where I'm wanting to maybe pause a little bit and do a little bit more research on the convention/meeting facility, as opposed to the Monte Vista. Is the Monte Vista can be constructed and operational in a very, very short period of time. And I can't remember, when you did your presentation, you guys were thinking, what was your timeline?
Well, once we begin construction, you're right, it wouldn't be very much longer after that. We own the property, and we could, you know, put shovels in the ground tomorrow if money was the resource allocated towards it.
And I think
Can I
when we
ask-
talk about a convention center, we're talking about identifying the property, purchasing the property, finding the funding, on and on and on.
I would suspect that the idea of if we still call it convention center, that it'll have to be done through some kind of public-private partnership. And I think the feasibility study will also help us identify those options for
I
funding.
agree. The only reason I bring it up is I think that we have had a lot of discussion about the soccer project, and like I said, and I think we've all had some good comments back from our community in regards to wanting to see that facility move forward, and we have been talking about it extensively for several months already. My only thing is I would be prepared to make a motion to put funding aside for that feasibility study with the caveat that we identify the timeline of LAFCO. Because if the project is going to be another 6 to 12 months in that process, then there's no point doing the feasibility study right now. But if we can get a timeline on the LAFCO process, and we know that that's going to be within a relatively short period of time, then I'm comfortable with moving forward with putting some funding towards that project and doing the feasibility study. That's my only point.
Jason, can I ask a question though? I think that the LAFCO thing, we absolutely need to get clarity on that, but I think I'd like a little clarity from ICOE as well. And I'm looking at page 275 of the agenda, and there's a paragraph there that says that the Monte Vista project does not require any ongoing funding from the city of El Centro, that once it's built, management and maintenance of the facilities belongs to the Foundation for Education. Okay? But what is ICOE's expectation when it comes to the construction costs?
Well, that's where we're looking for the partnership on the building, on the funding of the
But
building.
what I'm asking, I guess, specifically is, to the extent we move forward with construction, is there the anticipation or expectation that the city of El Centro is going to fund 50% of those construction costs?
Well, depending on what those costs are, but I don't know if we've mentioned a percentage in as much as what it would take to build the facility. In our initial discussions and plans internally at the Office of Education, we've pegged the number of about $15 million. But that's one of the reasons why we've leaning towards creating a feasibility study, which would assist us in the viability of the operations and maintenance after the fact, but it'll also assist us with the viability of the funding projections needed to build it on the front end as well. And so,
Okay, so but then. So
what's
I
your
want
percentage of that?
I want to make sure that the council is hearing clearly that this becomes then the third largest capital project that we're thinking to undertake with Measure P funding.
And our mayor brings up a good point. Maybe a follow-up question to that, Todd, would be, let's say that funding is 50%. Let's say the request from the city in a partnership would be 50%, and that number is $15 million.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Education Foundation of the means to have $7.5 million to match the city's $7.5 million?
Not as we stand today, certainly not. And I would also mention it may be the largest allocation in that you're contemplating at this point, but also 65 acres of park space as well, which I think would go a long ways towards
I don't think any of us
doubling.
discount the benefit to the community. I think that's why we all support it. But I think Cheryl's bringing up a valid point of where does that match come from? And if we commit, that kind of money, then what does ICOE commit to? Because just committing to the maintenance, long term doesn't do anything for the actual construction and getting it built. And does that mean if we put up $7.5 million and ICOE in essence doesn't have any matching funds, are we only building half the facility? And is that at 100% cost to the city? I think that's where the mayor's question is really directed.
Right. Well, I don't know if we'd have to have, we'd want to know what we're building before we build it. I don't know if building 50% of the project makes the project as viable as what the studies may bring back to say. I think
Yeah.
the assumption of the studies is that the entire thing might be built, but that might be an aspect of the study, to
But
see if
that-
it is viable at a three-field complex.
And the other opportunity, and I don't want to keep dragging this out or anything, I know that it appears that the council's pretty supportive of it, but there's also park bonds that's going to be very favorable to communities such as ours that are park poor and desert communities that we can maybe collaborate on. And the way I read that measure, the park bond is they're looking for collaborative projects, and this would clearly fit in there.
Right.
I'm actually kind of want to move up a little bit more in terms of paying for the feasibility study. And again, I believe there is consensus and maybe moving forward, but I would like maybe, Mr. Evangelist, if you can come back and give us, what they're willing to contribute towards the feasibility study so that we can move forward with it. I know that maybe was an option, but I'm assuming you're not prepared yet to say what that number is. So if we can, and this is just a suggestion, but if we can maybe come back and say, okay, we are prepared to move forward with an understanding of maybe there's some contribution opportunities from the foundation to contribute towards the feasibility study, I think that would kind of sweeten the pot and maybe moving forward. I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
No, whatever it takes to sweeten the pot. We're certainly willing to sit at the table and discuss any and all options.
I guess I'd be interested in finding out what my colleagues feel. I mean, I'm okay with moving forward. I do have the one caveat that we definitely have to know what the timeline is on the LAFCO process and where you guys are with that. I also think it'd be beneficial for us to know what kind of funding source ICOE has to bring to the table and what that might do to the overall project. But if we could work through those two items, I'm certainly supportive of moving forward with the feasibility study. And I think you came back with, and I don't know, Marcel, would we actually put out a bid for ourselves, or would we accept the fact that they've already kind of solicited bids for a feasibility study?
If we have our funding, my recommendation would be that we put it out and.
We put it out
RFP.
ourselves?
Yes.
And we would own the feasibility study at that point, if we were to pay for it?
Basically, I mean, if there's some kind of contribution from the foundation, then obviously it would be a study that could be used for both entities.
So maybe a more appropriate motion would be to move that we put out for a bid for a feasibility study for this project. And in doing so, we save a little bit of time to get that process moving, gives us some time to meet and confer with ICOE on moving forward on the issues that we've talked about, gives Todd some time to get with LAFCO and figure out that process too.
And I would agree with Councilmember Jackson. I mean, this is a project that has come before the council for some time. It's been worked up. We know what the goal is, but I think it's time to take a step forward and see how feasible that goal is and what actually needs to be done to accomplish this goal. So with the caveats that Councilmember Jackson spoke about, I'm very concerned about LAFCO's timeline and also where any further funding would come from, but I'm prepared to go forward with this.
Madam Mayor, I think and I'm hoping you can hear, but I don't think there'd be any harm in moving forward with putting out a bid request. I don't believe there'd be any major fiscal impact to that, and then kind of having some real numbers as far as what those costs would be, and then an understanding of what the contribution level would be from ICOE. Would you be favorable to that? To give me
Let me understand. The initial share for the cost of the feasibility study, we estimate the city's share from Measure P funding would be about $25,000. Is that correct?
No.
I think, Cheryl, they actually, ICOE solicited some bids, and I think they had two bids, one at 49 and one at, say, 35. But I think what we're being told, and our recommendation from Betsy and Marcella is that we would actually put out an RFP for a feasibility study, and then at that point, that pricing or that cost would come back to us, and we would have a better understanding of what that cost would be. So we're not actually moving to approve any funding at this point. We're just moving, or my motion was to put out for bid for a feasibility study for this project.
Okay, so now I'm really confused. Because it sounded like where you were going first, Jason, was that we would put out a request for qualification to identify firms that could do a feasibility study for us. Is that what we're talking about, or are we talking about separately and independently from what ICOE is doing for a feasibility study, doing our own feasibility study?
Yes, we would be doing our own feasibility study as recommended by staff, that we would.
Okay, so let me ask you this: what's the timeline on the counties moving forward with their feasibility study? Because wouldn't it make more sense for us to do our feasibility study after the county's done their feasibility study, so that we can simply hand our consultant the county's feasibility, the ICOE's feasibility study, and say, does this make sense to you? And how are the city's interests going to be moving forward, as opposed to, it sounds to me like having two independent studies with no crossover doesn't make any sense. But the county ICOE can quickly get their feasibility study done. We identify our consultant, get ready to get that teed up, and then be in a position to provide the county ICOE's consultant study to our consultant. Otherwise, we could be on like two different planets, and then what do we do?
Well, let me ask a question. So, Todd, the two quotes that you received, which is one around 50,000 and one around 35,000, those were quotes that were given to you for what? For a feasibility study?
For a feasibility study, out of our working group that we met with city staff and some council members, we thought it would be the prudent idea at that point to entertain some folks that we've worked with before here in the city, Kimley Horn, to either create a bid for us and see what that would look like, or create an actual proposal for us and see what that would look like, create an RFP that we could then put out to folks, help us as we create that, or also give us a bid at the same time. And so that's what they did. They came back and gave us those bids, and if the council chooses to go and create it as an RFP and request proposals, then it can quickly be used as a template to receive those from others as well.
I'd like to ask.
But I think we'd want to do it together. I don't know if I'm
Yes,
wanting
I'd like to
to.
ask our city manager, though, what her opinion is on this.
So basically, maybe what I may recommend is that we table the item and bring it back to you with maybe information on the annexation and where the timeline is for that. And then it gives us an opportunity to meet again with perhaps the working group that we have for Parks and Recreation, which is Councilmember Silva and Councilmember Cardenas. And then we can meet with ICOE staff and get a better, more definitive on the annexation, and then how do we want to proceed. Because the way we understood is we were just looking at completing one study that would basically be used by both agencies. We're not talking about duplicating, efforts. So perhaps we can bring back an update to you, either second meeting in May or first meeting in June, specifically just maybe to this discussion, where we can provide you more information.
But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the recommendation is that if we are going to fund that feasibility study, then we should own the feasibility study, which means we should initiate the request for proposals or request for qualifications, and there wouldn't be duplication, because at that point, ICOE, you wouldn't participate in the bids or the replies that you've received. You would depend on our process of going forward on the feasibility study. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we'd want to join in whatever that ends up being agreed upon, in whatever manner to do that.
I think this is getting a little confusing. So I like the recommendation that our city manager has given us to kind of give us a couple of weeks to regroup, come back with some tangible recommendations in terms of funding. If there's going to be some kind of ICOE contribution towards the feasibility study, we can get a definitive number for that. The idea of having two separate studies, that doesn't make any sense to me. I think that we need to come together. I don't subscribe to that. So I'd like to ask council to kind of give us a little time and come back.
I
as
would
it
ask
relates to this one.
I would ask that we bring it back. Can we bring it back at our next meeting, the first week in May, as opposed to the second week in May?
If we can, if with your schedules permit and we can arrange those meetings, we can certainly try to do that.
So that would be Councilmember Silva and myself?
That's correct.
Would you guys be okay with that?
I'm okay with it. Just to clarify, I think there isn't going to be two studies. It'll just be one study. And I believe that the request from ICOE, and correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, is that you're asking us to help fund in entirety that feasibility study. And if that's correct, then the recommendation from our city attorney and our city managers is that if we're going to do that, then we should be the ones initiating that process and owning that process.
Okay.
So is that?
I agree with that. I think that it,
Which doesn't mean preclude using what they've done so far.
Right.
Correct. If they've got a template that we can go ahead and use, there's no sense reinventing the wheel. We're just gonna do the process ourselves.
You need to, it's your grants funds.
yes, I agree that if we should do one study, be on the same page. We'll regroup, come back, and if we're gonna be taking care of this, then we definitely should be on point.
And, Mr. Mayor, I think to kind of move the discussion forward, I'd like to maybe also bring back the discussion on the feasibility study for the convention center and maybe kind of reconsider the scope of specifically what we would like to do and maybe even call it something else. But we can come back on that item as well.
I understand. The term convention center may give people cold feet because of how the enormity of the scope of some of the projects in other major cities. But I think that's something that we should discuss and kind of narrow the focus and see exactly what we're discussing in order to properly present it to everyone.
I agree.
All right, Madam Mayor, you okay with that?
Sounds fantastic. Just to clarify with regard to the ICOE thing, one of the other questions I really am interested in knowing what the expectation is from ICOE in terms of construction costs.
Okay.
That's right.
Go for it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business, Mr. Abraham Campos, Interim Director of Public Works and City Engineer. What are we talking about today?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Pro Tem Mayor, and council members. So I have a very simple item, and it's regarding the approval of a sewer agreement and a sewer loan for a residential property seeking to connect to the city system for sewer. So Mr. Philip Moran is interested in getting sewer. We do have an ordinance and a process where he can finance his sewer for a period of 2 years and paying some interest on that. So the cost is $9,000. His monthly payment is about $409. So with that, I just wish to recommend approval of the loan to Mr. Moran, and the project can move forward. That's it.
I move for approval.
Second.
All in favor, say
Can
aye.
I ask a quick question? Betsy, can you hear me okay?
I can, Madam Mayor.
So, Mr. Moran has done a lot of work, not recently, but has done work on my home. He's a very talented contractor. Would this somehow preclude me from hiring him again in the future during this period of time that he has the loan with the city?
No.
Okay.
We're not voting by.
No, we're voice point because, so roll call vote.
Roll call it.
All in favor, say aye.
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 The ayes have it. Moving on, Mr. Campos, item number 25, discussion and any necessary action regarding the approval of stormwater detention and retention basin guidelines.
All right, so thank you. This is a very anticipated item, I think, by the mayor and others and us in the Community Enhancement Task Force. The goal here is to simplify and provide options in creating retention basins in our development. So together with, as I mentioned, with the Community Enhancement Task Force and in support of the Vision 2050 goals, we are trying to improve residential developments as well as commercial developments and clarify the procedures for retention basin. So just to give you some history on what we had before, we had a retention basin standard that had quite a bit of requirements that included a lot of park-like amenities within the basins. A lot of that has not materialized, resulting in quite a bit of requests from developers, from commercial sites and residential sites to deviate from the approved plan. A lot of them were successful in those requests for valid reasons. The one good thing that the previous standard had, amongst others, is prohibiting parks to be set up at lower ground elevations at the bottom of the hose because of the alkalinity of the soil and the difficulty in growing grass. So the new proposed detention guidelines provides for dividing up the guidelines by criteria. So we have a single-use retention basins, single-use for high visibility, for low visibility, and for commercial and industrial areas. So what this does, it creates, the standard creates different parameters for where the basin is located. If it's in a residential site that's very visible from Arterial Street or from the residents, the special treatment and landscaping would have to be will be required to make sure that it is aesthetically pleasing, and those requirements would be reduced for retention basins that are hidden away. There's areas where we have retention basins within the city that really nobody even knows they're there, and those would obviously, you wouldn't need a bunch of lighting and path and landscape in those areas. Same with commercial and industrial basins. You don't have the residents to go and access park-like facilities, so the commercial and industrial area basins would require reduced standards as well. So the basins that I mentioned right just above, they are primarily for flood control basins, and they under the current regulation do not count towards park areas. So right now, developer comes in, there's a requirement for some area of land to be set aside as park, and that's the only area that's gets set aside that's counted towards that park requirement. And the basin, although we are currently asking for a lot of park-like amenities, doesn't count or towards a park area. So with that, we're also introducing a multi-use basin, and that's completely new to this to the previous standard. So this completely adds a new method of combining park and detention basin, taking advantage of some of those improvements that are going into the retention basins and counting them towards park. We were very careful on how much credit we provide to the park areas, because obviously we don't want to provide a credit to retention basin areas for park if they're going to be inundated with water or they're going to be lying too low that grass will not grow. So we limited the requirement to what the engineers call a 10-year storm, which bottom line means that area of the basin will not see water, but for maybe once every 10 years on average. So it'll fill up to a point, and then it'll remain dry every 10 years at that point. So from there on, we can install park-like amenities or soccer fields or baseball fields, structures that are
grass would grow?
work. Because we limited the depth to only 2 feet deep and above, basically that would count towards this grass area. So that's one limiting factor. And the second limiting factor is the water, the rain, that it won't see the rain. It won't get flooded, basically, but for every 10 years. Obviously, we don't want to place a restroom facility at that elevation, but it's because it will see water every 10 years. But we can place other facilities such as baseball fields, soccer fields, and whatnot. So we also, for this multi-use basins, we eliminated the requirement for fencing because it's only 2 feet deep. But we kept the requirement for fencing in the deeper areas of the basin. So what you have in front of you is a sample, a sketch of what it could look like. The bottom level, and it's hard to see without a pointer. I know this doesn't work with a pointer, but on the bottom image, you see the very lower depression there with rocks. That and below would be the 10-year storm. So obviously there's that area would not be counted against towards park credit, but everything else where you see the schematics of people and children playing, that would count as a park area. That depth would be about 2 feet max and would not see water but every 10 years. And then on the top, obviously, you will get your 100, the top image is the 100-year storm, where you do have the capacity to go all the way to the top in a 100-year event, or actually 10 years and above. So, any questions on this sketch? So, going back to the requirement and recognizing that we have alkalinity issues and we have difficult growing grass, we have limited the 10-year the elevation to 10 years, and we are requiring soil testing and amendment information to be submitted as part of the basin design submittal if they want to use this multi-use basin. So we also are requiring the establishment of lighting and landscape districts for these multi-use basins because of the complexity of the facility. It'll require irrigation systems. It's a park basin, so we are asking for lighting and management district to help offset the maintenance costs. So why are we doing this? There's at the end of the day, there's about a little bit over 20% land area savings when you combine the basin. Yeah, it could be more, but because we're limiting the depth to 2 feet, that's about as much as we can obtain in land area savings, as opposed to separate parks and basins. By having one of these multi-use basins, we free up about 20% of the land for those combined, potentially giving more lots for homes out there, and also trying to eliminate some of the eyesores that we have with the retention basins. So, and also to offer flexibility. So we're trying to offer flexibility. This is not a mandate. This is a guideline. We're not calling this a standard. We're calling this a guideline. So obviously, we encourage development to come in and either try to go by the standard or provide something else, but we're leaving the door open for developers. So with that, I'm open for questions, and if you asking you to consider this for approval of this guideline.
Any questions from council?
Not necessarily a question, but comment. I want to commend staff on really moving forward with this. I also want to commend Mr. Silva, because this was an initiative that was brought forth initially during his term as mayor, and we did some roundtables with developers, and you know, this is I think helps us move the message forward that we are trying to be more developer friendly. We are trying to encourage development here in the city of El Centro, and so I'm very supportive of this, and I want to say good job to you and your staff, and thank you to Mr. Silva for initiating the initial roundtables that brought forth some of these suggestions that we're moving on today.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jackson. I think, yeah, this is huge. Actually, it is. It's a huge step for the city in terms of, you know, being in a position to be able to get additional housing in the center. When we talk to developers, this is one of the big items that they discuss. And we've done this. We've also reduced minimum lot sizes in the city to be able to accommodate additional housing units. So I think things are moving. And you know, we got the one subdivision that is already building, but hopefully with this and other things that may come up, we'll begin to see more and more. So thank you, Abraham, for the work.
Just one quick comment. I also want to thank the Community Enhancement Task Force for their help and being a vehicle to make this thing happen. So congratulations to all staff. And with that, I'm prepared to make a motion to accept the recommendations of staff and move forward with this.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. One follow-up question, Abraham. What can we do now to promote this to the development groups out there? I mean, is there a way of getting this message out to them that we've taken this step and let them know that this is now an option for them?
Well, we can work with the city manager's office and we'll to put a blast out there. We can individually contact the known developers. During the guideline process, we did send it out to the different engineers to see, hey, any comments? We did not get any comments. But we can make an effort to reach out to the local developers, the developers that we know and have relationships of these comments.
Right. I think that could be beneficial in starting that conversation for more development here in El Centro. So,
Will do.
Thank you.
Great job, Abraham. Now, moving on to item 26. I'm sure many of you are waiting for this. Before we discuss and take action on this item, I need to announce that pursuant to the requirements of California law, the City Council must orally report a summary of any council action on salaries, salary schedules, or fringe benefits for any executive managers, including the Chief of Police. Before the City Council this evening is a recommendation to approve a salary and benefit resolution for the new Chief of Police. The salary provided is $12,500 per month. Benefits generally are the same as those for management employees, and a car is provided for business use. Now, if we could have someone come up to discuss the resolution. Terry?
City manager.
First.
Terry first.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Before we get to the contract, I would like to give you a background on how we got to where we are tonight. Back in October of 2017, the city received a letter of resignation from our previous police chief, Eddie Madueño, and that was after 33 years of service to the city. In November of 2017, the city hired the executive search team of Peckham and McKinney to provide the services of recruitment for this position. Peckham and McKinney did a nationwide recruitment. The recruitment closed on December 31st, 2017, and they received 15 applications from this position nationwide. Mr. Clay Phillips of Peckham and McKinney was the assigned recruiter. On January 16th, 2018, he presented the applications to the city council and city manager with the resumes of those that met the qualifications and experience that the city was looking for. 4 applicants were chosen to be interviewed on February 9th, 2018. For that interview process, we had 2 interview panels. One consisted of members of the community. We had Sheriff Ray Luera, District Attorney Gilbert Otero, Chamber of Commerce CEO Darletta Willis, Central Union High School District Superintendent Renato Montano, and the Mayor of El Centro, Cheryl Viejas Walker. The second panel consisted of city department heads. We had Acting Public Works Director Abraham Campos, Finance Director Leticia Salcido, Fire Chief Ken Herbert, Community Development Director Norma Villacana, and Councilmember Jason Jackson. Mayor Viejas Walker and Councilmember Jackson were requested to be on this interview panel due to them being part of the Public Safety Task Force. We also had staff members from the police department. We had Commander Robert Sawyer, Sergeant Ray Benias, Dispatcher Supervisor Heather Johnson, Record Supervisor Ruben Martel, Staff Assistant Amanda Curiel, and Police Officer and the President of the POA, James Thompson. After the interviews were completed on February 9th, both panels met along with the city manager at that time, Marcela Piedra, to discuss the interviews of the 4 applicants, and then the city manager narrowed it down to 2 applicants, and then she also did a second interview with them. After the second interview, the city manager made her decision to offer the position to Brian Johnson, which we're here tonight to approve his contract and swear him in as the new police chief. And now I'd like to hand it over to Marcela.
Thank you, Mrs. Brownlee. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. First of all, I want to express my gratitude, obviously, to the members of the Public Safety Task Force, Councilmember Jackson, and our Mayor, Cheryl Villegas Walker. As was summarized by our Human Resource Director, we had members of the community be part of this process. As we know, this is a very important position for our city and obviously our community. I also appreciate, and I know we have several of our staff from our police department. It was very important for me to have the input and have our employees be part of that process, as obviously this individual was going to work directly with them. So it was very important to have their input on this. Of course, the executive search team that we used helped guide us through this process, so I really, really appreciate that. I also want to express my gratitude to our interim Chief of Police, Alvaro Ramirez, for stepping in and being our interim these past couple of months as we were going through this search. With respect to Mr. Johnson, I want to say that it was very, very critical. As you know, our police department is working on very, very exciting projects. We have a comprehensive study that was done for our police department with many recommendations that just enhance the quality of work that we are seeing by our department. We also, have our challenges, and we're very hopeful that with the experience that Mr. Johnson is bringing to the position are certainly going to take us to the next level. Of course, not to mention a major project that we are considering, which has been mentioned tonight, which is the development of that new police station. Very excited to have those projects moving forward. With all these different strategies and obviously looking at the department, it was important to find the right fit and find a candidate that had the strong police administration experience. And I believe we have found that in Mr. Johnson. I'm very, very pleased to recommend that appointment to you, and hopefully with your concurrence, he will be our new chief of police. And what I would ask of the council at this time is for you to consider that resolution and then allow, after actions taken, our city clerk to swear him in and then move forward with the badge pinning for Mr. Johnson. Thank you.
Comments or?
No,
or
let's,
we just
well,
make
I think that maybe the comments can come later, or?
Yeah,
Yes, I think
we can do that.
So, Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of the resolution as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
So with,
The pinning?
if we, sir,
That's not it. No, I can't get any pictures if you don't.
Yeah.
I can't get any pictures.
Constitution of the State of California. All enemies. Against all enemies. Foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith. Allegiance. To the Constitution. Of the United States. And the Constitution. Of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely. Without any mental reservation. Or purpose of evasion. And that I will well. And faithfully. Discharge the duties. Upon which I am about to enter.
yes, and then we just need to say who.
Excuse me, thank you to everybody, to the mayor and the council. I'll say a few comments in a minute, but my wife has asked if we're gonna have my father-in-law.
It's like that little refrigerator. It'll just do that.
Chief, would you like to introduce your family if you haven't already?
Well, Honorable Mayor, council members, city manager, our city attorney, of course, our city clerk, and really all the city staff. This is a very humbling opportunity for me, and I wanted to say a few comments. I'll try to keep them very brief. I know it's been a long council meeting, and there's still some items of attention on the agenda, so I'll try to keep them as brief as possible. But first and foremost, You know, this has been an incredible journey for my wife and my family, and without our Lord Jesus Christ, I really wouldn't be here today. And so, first and foremost, we put our faith in God, and so I want to thank our Lord for taking us on this journey and making me a part of this community. Secondly, to the mayor and the council and the city manager, you put a lot of faith in me, and I understand that. There is no more visible presence in the police department in our community, and it starts with the chief and how we represent and how we treat our community. So you have my commitment that I will serve this great city with honor, with integrity, and with impeccable professionalism. So thank you for your support. Next, in the last couple weeks, excuse me, I probably should have grabbed some water. But really, in the last couple weeks, this is really to the men and women, both sworn, civilian, professional staff of the El Centro Police Department. I can tell you through this short interaction and the time that I've had the opportunity to meet the incredible people of the El Centro Police Department, just how incredibly impressed. In fact, excuse me, I was having one meeting with the executive commander, interim chief Ramirez, and it became very apparent that that team of El Central police officers, and again, the entire staff, there's a book written by Jim Collins, Good to Great, and I think many of us have read it. But what we talked about was how the El Centro Police Department was going from great to greater. And I can tell you, in my short time, it is absolutely true. Just a very dedicated group of professionals, and to be a part of that team is very humbling for me. What I would say really to our residents that are watching over TV, and to the residents here tonight, we will continue to be that open, that transparent police department that you have so much trust in. We will not do anything to violate that trust. When we get it wrong, we're going to admit our mistakes, but we're going to learn from them to understand how we can police better, because we understand at the end of the day we're public servants, and really we serve at the pleasure of the public. It's so fitting in 1829, Sir Robert Peel said, the people are the public is the police, and the police are the public. So many years later, we look back and we understand that couldn't be more important today than ever, that the public and our residents of this great community rely on us, and we value that, and we will continue to serve in that light. So I didn't get here alone, and there's been many people throughout my life, certainly, obviously, and I'll mention my family in a minute, but there's two people that are here, and if you just indulge me a minute, one is my cousin's husband, Kirby Wong. He's a retired sergeant with the LA County Sheriff's Department, and a dear friend, Bob Gustafson, a 40-year veteran of law enforcement, a 12-year chief of police. How he did it for 12 years, I don't know. But what I can tell you, in my, going on 30 years in this profession, both of them, with many others, had a profound impact on my professional life as a police officer. And so I'm very honored that they're here to help support me and to support the men and women of the El Centro Police Department. And then lastly, to my family. My wife is obviously here. We didn't let the boys come because they had more important things. They had school to attend to. But obviously my father-in-law is here, my sister-in-law and her husband Rich and their daughter Rebecca. My mom of 88 years young made the long trip, and with my sister Mary. And so, we're a fabric of our family, and good and bad, I think they did good in me and in all my flaws, but I just can't thank them enough for being there, supporting me. Those of us that wear the uniform, we understand that we could not do this job if we didn't have the support of our family. And so for that, I'll be ever grateful. And my wife truly is the one that keeps the family and the fabric together. So I said I would be brief. I know I'm not always brief. So with that, I just want to say thank you, and for the entire El Centro city family and our residents. It's just been an incredibly warm acceptance of me and my family, so thank you very much. God bless you.
Comments from the council?
Just real briefly, I know it's running long. I appreciate the patience that your family has shown through this pretty long agenda, but Chief, welcome. I do want to recognize our interim Chief, Alvaro and Ramirez. Thank you so much for stepping in there, sir. To you and your family, you did an incredible job, and I appreciate you keeping our police department together. Two impressive things that I've been able to capture, Chief, is number one, you got to meet Officer Thompson. So when I met you on Saturday, you said, hey, I've talked to Officer Thompson, so I appreciate you guys meeting and talking already, and I also appreciate the fact that you were already at some of our community events. So you being out in the community and being visible is important. You have a lovely, lovely wife, great person, and so welcome to our family.
Yeah, I too also want to echo my thanks to Executive Commander Alvaro and the other two commanders. I think it's it shows the commitment that we have in our police department in carrying us through that period of time, and so I want to thank personally all three of our commanders. I think you know, we have some big things going, and I think you're aware of those. Obviously, the police department construction is something that this community probably won't see ever again if we, you know, in the next 100 years. So this is a big moment for our city. I think that our personnel are looking for, you know, that next chapter in their lives and the lives of our department. So I'm very excited. I was very honored to be part of the process that brought you here today, along with the mayor and a lot of our community members, and also a lot of our men and women of our department. I think that was somewhat unique that we did, and I think our city manager and our consultant that helped us with the search that brought that to us, as far as really bringing the community together, bringing the department together. A lot of our department heads participated in the interview process, and I think what we wanted to do was we wanted to have 100% buy-in from not only from our members of our department, but our community, our business community, our residents, and such. And so I think we accomplished that. I'm looking for good things and big things from you, and I think all of us are. And I think you will deliver. So very excited about you being here. Thank you to your family for making the trek down here, and look forward to many years of good leadership. And I think our department is looking for that too. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief Johnson. It's the first time I say this. First time I meet you. So very good to see you here. I think that judging by the comments that you made, not only did you say all the right things, but I can tell by your voice that you had passion, that you really believe in the words that you told us, and I'm very impressed for that. So that tells me immediately that the city of El Centro has made the right choice in having you lead our police department and what you called, and I'm grateful and concur that the great city of El Centro, because we do have a terrific city managed by terrific people, the premier police department in Imperial Valley, no question about that. And I also look forward to, you know, taking us to the next level. There's very exciting things happening, and to have a person with your experience, your leadership, I think that, you know, there's only one way to go, and that's up. And so thank you for that. Thank you for introducing us to your family. I appreciate that as well. And also to our commanders that are here, Alvaro and everybody else, thank you for holding the department together. And these are exciting times in many ways, and I'm just so proud to be able to participate and be on the council at this point in time. And so welcome to the city of El Centro.
I'd like to start off by saying thank you very much to our interim chief. You are an utmost professional. And it was a pleasure having you be our interim chief, and thank you very much for a job very well done. Now, going on to our new chief, it's an honor. Thank you very much. I met you at a community event, and I've seen you around the community already, and it's wonderful to see how you've embraced the city, and we really look forward to you becoming part of the community, and it's kind of hard to leave once you get used to all of us. So, but I'd like to say welcome to the family, welcome to the best police department in the valley, and we look forward to a very, very good career. Mayor?
Oh, thank you. I would like to start my comments with Commander Ramirez to thank you and your team for your leadership during this period of time while we were looking for a new chief. Chief Johnson, I was impressed with you on Saturday when we met at the community events, and I thought that I could not be any more impressed that somebody who starts his remarks in a new community talking about his faith and his family, that's just remarkable. And I really look forward to working with you and having you lead our fine department. Appreciate that you were at the community events as well, and your willingness to kind of tackle an issue right away. I know we kind of threw you right in to things there with El Centro Regional Medical Center, but we do need your help there, so keep that at the top of your list. I do want to say to everybody there that's present, I'm disappointed that I couldn't be there in person tonight, but on the other hand, hearing kind of like the crowd go wild upon the introduction of Chief Johnson was a pretty cool experience from here. So I just want to say welcome, Chief, and we look forward to great things from you and your department.
Wonderful. Again, congratulations. Okay, let's move on to legislation action. Anything to report? No? Okay. Moving on, there's no business scheduled for the successor agency. No business scheduled for the successor housing agency. Now we'll move on to public comments. The City Council welcomes your input at this time. Members of the public may address the City Council on any matter not listed on the posted agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, no action will be taken on any issue brought forth under public comments. We ask that you please complete a speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. Although you are not required to identify yourself pursuant to Government Code Section 54953.3, this information on the speaker slip assists the mayor that all persons wishing to address the council are recognized, and also assists the city clerk in preparing the city council meeting minutes. Unless the mayor extends the time, there is a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. Any information provided on the speaker slip is voluntary and will be public record. Do you have any public comments? No public comments at this time. Now we move on to task force reports and mayor and council member reports. I would ask that the council be brief, as we have lots of people waiting for cake.
I'll start off, Mayor Pro Tem. I have no comment.
You can see how important cake is to Alex. I'll make it brief. The CPSM conference call I attended with our fire chief and several members of the fire department in recapping the study that was done in regards to our fire department was quite enlightening and was well received, I believe, by the troops in the fire department. Attended the SDSU Taste of the Valley down at Calexico campus. It was a very well attended event. Also attended the coffee with Senator Ben Wesso at Fire Station number 3 for his legislative update, and I thought that was well received. And there was a comment that I made to the chief in regards to the 9/11 portrait that is on display. I don't know, maybe we've moved it to City Hall now, but one suggestion is to maybe at our next council meeting to bring that and present at the council meeting. I think there's a lot of people in Imperial Valley and specifically El Centro that maybe don't know the story behind that painting, and I think it's quite an honor to be the host of that painting for the next couple months. So would like to make sure that our residents are informed of that. Attended the carne asada cook-off and was a judge, and I'm not sure how, I think I gained a few pounds. We had, I had to try out 11 tacos, but I say that I had to try out. Somebody forced me to it. But it was a well-attended event, and I'm sorry I missed you, Chief, at the Buckland Park. I did attend right after, but I'd missed you at that point. But also attended the latter part of the 110th birthday celebration at Buckland Park. And then also, I know Mayor Pro Tem and myself are attending the El Centro Day at Petco tomorrow for the Dodger-Padre game. So good things ahead. Thank you.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the Mayor's Summit that was hosted by the City of Calexico last Friday. The city manager was there as well. This summit was attended by the mayors of Mexicali, Brawley, Calexico, and I think there was representation from Imperial and a few other cities. It was very interesting. We got some information in regards to the effort by the City of Calexico along with the state legislature in cleaning up the new river. And it sounds like there's definitive progress in terms of getting the new river beginning to get cleaned up. And so I was very happy to see that. As part of the closing ceremonies of the summit, the City of Calexico used a local artist, and they gave each of the cities a picture, a drawing. This is the City of El Centro, and what we received. This drawing reflects our mall, our old post office pavilion, our fire department, and our old tower. So this is very cool. I'm gonna pass it back, and Marcela, you find the right place to hang this picture, because I think it's pretty cool.
What's his name? Alvarado? Harris?
I also attended the City of El Centro's birthday celebration, and one of the things that was rewarding was to see the number of sponsors that contributed towards our celebration. Right after that, I went to the taco cook-off, and Mr. Jackson, I saw you there, and I didn't see much struggle with the tacos that you were eating. I think they were
I didn't get like this by struggling with tacos.
And then at the evening, I attended the MAG sneakers ball, and very happy to be there. Just to give you an update, Chief, on May 18th, the City of El Centro is hosting a binational four-state public safety summit, where we'll be joined by your counterparts from Mexicali, Baja, Sonora, Mexico, the Arizona border, as well as Imperial County public safety people, officers. The intent of the summit is to come up with some strategies on better binational and across-state collaborations. We have put together a very exciting agenda with the help of Mr. Ramirez and our city manager, and conversations with our guests that are coming from the other locations. And we have a follow-up meeting Monday, I believe, to refine the agenda a little better. So I look forward to your participation in helping us plan this summit, which it may be the first of its kind. 2 nations, 4 states getting together to develop better relationships. I think it's a pretty exciting project. So look forward to that. And I'm asking the council members to put this on your calendar. Again, it's May 18th.
I'll be brief. I see my colleagues everywhere, so the chances are that if they've been to an event, I was there. So I'll move on and defer to the mayor.
Yeah, ditto on that. Far be it for an out-of-towner to be standing between you guys and cake. I'll just report that I am up here in Sacramento through Thursday as part of the League of California Cities Legislative Action Days. So I miss you all, and I'll look forward to seeing you when I get back in the valley on Friday.
And with that, we will.
Where's the cake at?
With that, we will adjourn this meeting and welcome you all to a celebration of the 110th
Mayor?
year for the city of
Mayor
El
Pro
Centro.
Tem, we need to adjourn to Wednesday, April the
We will adjourn to Wednesday,
April 25th at 11 a.m.
Oh, yes.
April 25th
Fifth.
at 11
a.m.
a.m.
Conference room.
Conference room A? will be closed
Conference
session.
room A, yes, we will be having a special meeting, but now we will,
Can I get a motion and a second?
yes.
So move, or second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
The ayes have it. Now we can adjourn. What?
Well, that's, we
You can privately hum to
we
yourself.
can adjourn to you taking over the meeting and singing and organizing the.
Fine. There's a microphone.
See you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.